Hello and welcome to the State of the Fleet Market, a weekly video series produced by Automotive Fleet magazine. I'm Mike Antich, editor of Automotive Fleet, and today I'll examine what's occurring in the fleet market as of the week of June 8th, 2020. As we all know, depreciation is the largest fleet expense. And since my report last week, there's been several important developments that have occurred which have a direct bearing on the wholesale used vehicle market where out-of-service fleet vehicles are remarketed. So based on my experience, the best barometer to the vitality of the fleet market is the vitality of the wholesale used vehicle market. The two are very much intertwined. However, most of us have very little, if any, contact with the people who buy used fleet vehicles. Typically, independent dealers are the buyers of used fleet vehicles at auction, and they buy the vehicles there for the purpose of reselling them on their used vehicle lots to retail buyers. The type of retail buyer is dictated by the type of asset that's being sold. So the retail buyers of out-of-service vocational vehicles tend to be tradesmen, independent contractors, or owners of small businesses that need well-maintained, less expensive work vehicles. So for non-vocational fleet vehicles, such as sedans, crossovers, SUVs, and even light-duty pickups, the typical buyer is a retail consumer who is purchasing the vehicle as their primary transportation. Generally, but not always, many of these consumers are financially constrained and/or have poor credit, which in some cases may require financing their purchase using subprime lending. Many of them work in retail or service industries that tend to pay salaries in the lower end of the payroll spectrum. So with this as background, an important announcement was made last Friday, June 5th, with the release of the U.S. Labor Department jobs report for the month of May. And the report was surprisingly better than anyone had anticipated. So before last Friday's announcement, the forecast by pundits was for unemployment to continue to grow. However, the jobs report for May 2020 showed just the opposite. There were an unbelievable 2.5 million new jobs created, and no one predicted this. And this bodes well for the used vehicle market. Many of these new jobs are in retail, hospitality, and the service industries, areas that tend to have a higher percentage of used vehicle buyers. And this promises to increase buyer demand for used vehicles, which in turn will produce upward pressure on used vehicle prices. And this is good news for all of us who are remarketing late model used fleet vehicles. In addition, it appears that the economy may be rebounding faster than anticipated as we emerge from the economic shutdown that was mandated by state governments to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 virus. The initial forecast for the economy to start rebounding was to occur in the August or September timeframe. To see this level of growth this early in the month of May is very encouraging. And what makes it even more encouraging is that much of the national economy has not yet fully reopened. For example, as of the end of May, only 79% of small businesses had reopened. So that means 21% of small businesses yet to reopen were not included in the May jobs report. These businesses will reopen in the coming months, and they will be hiring new employees that will be reflected in future job reports. Also, not all states have fully reopened, as in the case of several larger states such as New York and California. Neither of these were included in the May jobs report. The fact remains that there is room for further job growth in the month of June, which will make the prospects of even more jobs appearing all the more promising. An example, today, June 8th, non-essential businesses in New York City are opening up for the first time. These jobs were not included in the May job report. Altogether, this will represent 51,000 additional companies that will need to hire employees to run these businesses. In fact, of all cities in the U.S., New York City is by far the largest contributor to total U.S. gross domestic product, or GDP. So by all indications, There will be more job growth that will be occurring as more small businesses reopen and as more states fully reopen for business. The next jobs report will be July 2nd for the month of June, and we'll be reporting on that once it's released. Altogether, this optimism is also borne out in the wholesale used vehicle market. In listening to independent auctions across the country, the used vehicle market is getting stronger. And the key metric is conversion rates, which is the percentage of vehicles that are sold at auction out of the total number of vehicles that were offered or consigned. So in the past week, conversion rates at independent auctions were running in the 70 to 80 plus percentile range. Additionally, different parts of the country may be thawing out quicker than other parts of the country, but the consensus is among auctions that sales activity is starting to pick up. And while sales activity is not at the same level as it was prior to the pandemic, it is improving. So for example, the sales of used vehicles in the month of April were better than those in the month of March, and the sales in May were better than those in the month of April. There are a variety of other metrics that support this assessment about the wholesale used vehicle market. 1. Sales percentages are up. Consignments of vehicles being offered for sale are up. Online sales volumes are increasing. More physical auctions are reopening, and more dealers are bidding on vehicles either online or in the physical auction lane. While it's still very early, the important fact is that all of these metrics are pointing in the right direction. Another indicator, we're actually seeing labor shortages with independent dealers and auctions. First, independent dealers, and we've covered this in a past State of the Industry report, they're finding it hard to get their furloughed workers to come back to work. Now we're hearing from independent auctions that they're finding it hard to hire part-time employees to drive vehicles past the auction block to be bid on by dealers as the physical auctions are reopening. So, why are dealers and auctions having trouble getting workers to return to work? The reason is the Payroll Protection Program, or as it's known, PPP, which is offered by the federal government and is paying workers more in unemployment benefits than what they would make if they returned to their jobs. So many of them are electing to stay out of work, to collect their benefits as long as it lasts, before returning to work, and that's creating a labor shortage in both those industry segments. In addition, there are other headwinds that are occurring. A key funder for the majority of independent dealers is Wells Fargo Bank. Last week, Wells Fargo announced that it would halt contract funding for independent dealers, which is now forcing dealers to look elsewhere for funding. But despite all this, the month of June is starting off better than anyone anticipated. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that this momentum continues. And with that wish, this concludes my State of the Industry presentation for the week of June 8th. Thank you for listening.